There's a certain quiet that settles in when your birthday arrives and nothing really changes. No countdown, no plans, no moment where the day announces itself as special. You wake up, you check your phone, maybe there's a message or two, maybe there isn't. And you tell yourself it doesn't matter, because for some people it genuinely doesn't. At least, that's what they say. But the psychology of people who treat their birthday like a normal day is rarely about indifference. It's not apathy, it's not coldness, and it's definitely not a lack of depth. If anything, it's the opposite, because the people who blur their birthday into the rest of the week are often the ones who've thought about it the most. They just don't talk about it. At a glance, it looks simple. They don't want the fuss. They don't like attention. They'd rather keep things low-key. But psychologically, something more subtle is happening, because birthdays are strange. They're one of the few days where the world pauses and asks, "Are you okay being seen?" And not everyone answers that question the same way. Some people lean into it, others step back, and some quietly observe. When someone treats their birthday like a normal day, it's often because they've learned to decouple meaning from performance. They don't need balloons to confirm existence. They don't need witnesses to validate growth. They don't need noise to prove significance. Not because they're above it, but because at some point they learned how unreliable attention can be. Psychologically, many of these people developed what's called earned emotional independence. That doesn't mean they never wanted recognition. It means they learned, early or slowly, that waiting for others to show up could be risky. So they learned to show up for themselves instead. They became internally sourced. They learned how to self-regulate, how to self-soothe, how to self-validate. And on the surface, that looks like strength. And it is. But strength always comes with trade-offs. Because here's the paradox most people miss. Even the most emotionally self-sufficient people still carry a quiet hope. Not a demand, not an expectation, just a hope that someone will notice without being reminded, that someone will remember without being prompted, that someone will reach out without needing a cue. And birthdays become a subtle test, not one you announce, one your nervous system runs quietly in the background. You might tell yourself you don't care, but a small part of you still checks. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. No matter how grounded or independent someone becomes, the need for connection never disappears. We don't outgrow it, we just get better at hiding it. There's also something deeper happening beneath the surface. For many people, birthdays stop feeling celebratory when time itself starts to feel heavier. When years don't just represent growth, but reflection. For some, a birthday feels like progress. For others, it feels like pressure. And the brain processes that difference based on emotional history. If the past year felt aligned, meaningful, or steady, birthdays feel like quiet milestones. But if the year was confusing, stagnant, or painful, a birthday can feel like a confrontation. A reminder that time moved forward, even if you didn't feel like you did. So, instead of magnifying the day, some people shrink it. They blur it. They let it pass. Not because they're avoiding reflection, but because they want to choose when it happens. This is why many people who treat their birthday like a normal day are deeply introspective. They don't need the date to force reflection. They're already doing it constantly. The birthday doesn't add insight, it just amplifies it. And sometimes, that's too loud. There's another layer here that doesn't get talked about much. People who downplay their birthdays are often the same people who show up fully for everyone else's. They remember important dates. They check in first. They celebrate others without keeping score. They're the quiet anchors in their circles, the ones who hold space. And sometimes, they forget that holding space doesn't mean you don't deserve to be held too. This is where the psychology becomes especially interesting. Because many of these people aren't uninterested in being celebrated. They're just uncomfortable asking for it. They don't want to orchestrate their own significance. They don't want to manage expectations. They don't want to risk disappointment. So they opt for control instead. If you expect nothing, nothing can let you down. And if something does happen, it feels genuine, unforced, real. This is why small gestures matter so much to people who say, It's just another day. One message, one call, one moment of presence. Not because of the size, but because of the sincerity. Because it confirms something quietly important. That their existence registers even when they're not performing it. There's also a developmental shift that happens over time. As people grow older, meaning starts to migrate inward. Early in life, joy is loud, it's external, it's collective. Later, joy becomes subtle, private, integrated. And birthdays follow the same trajectory. They stop being events, they become checkpoints, moments where your subconscious takes inventory. What's changed? What hasn't? Who's still here? Who am I becoming? And when you treat your birthday like a normal day, it doesn't mean you're skipping those questions. It often means you're facing them quietly, without an audience. Because not every kind of growth needs to be broadcast. Some growth is invisible. It shows up in how you react differently than you used to, how you forgive faster, how you complain less, how you find beauty in moments that once went unnoticed. And maybe that's the truest kind of celebration. When you don't need the day to feel extraordinary, because you've learned how to find the extraordinary inside the ordinary. Still, there's a gentle truth worth remembering. Even the calmest souls still deserve warmth. Not because they need validation, but because recognition nourishes the parts of us that carry others. And the people who treat their birthday like any other day are often the ones who forget that they too are allowed to receive, that it's okay to let others give back. That joy doesn't have to be earned by being strong all year. If you've ever felt that quiet ache on your birthday, the kind that doesn't demand attention but still hums beneath your chest, that's not emptiness. It's your heart reminding you that connection still matters, that you're human. And that's the whole point of the day. Not to celebrate achievement, not to celebrate perfection, but to celebrate presence. The fact that you're still here, still learning, still evolving, still trying to make sense of what it means to live. So maybe the psychology of people who treat their birthday like a normal day isn't about indifference at all. Maybe it's about integration, the merging of joy and reflection, the acceptance that not every emotion has to be loud to be real. And yet, even in that peace, there's room for softness, because one sincere acknowledgement can still make someone's day. And deep down, none of us truly want to be invisible. We just want to be loved in the language we understand. Some people want fireworks, others want peace. Some want crowds, others want one person who listens. And all of it is valid. So if your birthday feels ordinary, if you drank your coffee, checked your messages, and carried on, maybe that's not something to fix. Maybe it's something to honor. Because what you're really saying is, my life already holds enough meaning that it doesn't need one day to prove it. That's not detachment. That's gratitude in disguise. But if you ever miss the excitement you once had, that's okay too. Missing your younger self doesn't mean you've regressed. It means you remember what innocence felt like before the world taught you restraint. And perhaps the greatest gift you can give yourself on your birthday is this: to remember the child who once believed one day could hold infinite magic. Because that child is still inside you, not waiting for a party, just waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for you to whisper, "Hey, I see you. We made it another year." And that kind of celebration doesn't fade when the candles go out. It stays. Even on days that feel ordinary. Especially on those days